Hey graphic designers, this is Mr. Granlund here, and I'm going to take you through some things that you can do inside of the self-portrait project. This is one project that I'm going to do, and you can follow along with me. I'm going to do this inside of GIMP, and inside of GIMP I have my drawing. It's me, and I have arms, and in each one of my hands on these arms that are sticking out are different things about me. So what I've done is I've taken pictures on my phone and I'm going to download them now. So I'm going to click download and go ahead and download those pictures into a file that I can find. Now that I've downloaded my pictures onto my computer, I'm going to drag them into GIMP and make sure that they're located in the right place. I have all of my pictures inside of GIMP, and I'm going to take a look at my idea. So my idea has the arms, so I need to cut out all of these pictures but kind of leave the arms in this area. Whenever I'm cutting things out, I want to try and use layer masks as often as possible. I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to go ahead and paint out all the parts that I want to keep and I want to get rid of. I'm going to do this to each of my layers, cut out the arms and the things that they're holding, and then I'll come back and show you the result after that. Okay, so here's where I'm at this picture right now. I pasted it in my background, but I didn't like this dock here, so I got rid of it using the clone stamp and the healing brush tool. If I turn this off, you'll see that my background doesn't have that dock in there, and my picture looks like that. I'm going to go ahead and select none there. And now I want to take my group of layers, which has my 4 different pictures. They're kind of stacked on top of each other, and I'm going to flip it and create a reflection. So it's really easy. I'm going to duplicate my layer. I can right click on it and go to duplicate layer, or I can go to layer and duplicate layer. And I'm just going to merge this layer group so it's a little bit easier to work with. And I'm going to go to and I'm going to transform this with layer, transform, and flip vertically. I'm going to move this down here so that my feet match there. Now I also want to scale this down because if I was reflected in the water, it would look lighter. So I'm going to go to my layer, transform, and oh, I got it turned around here. I'm going to go to my scale button right there. And I just want to scale it down vertically here. I'm going to unbind that so that when I do this it can kind of squish. There we go. And that looks good. And all I did is I broke that chain right there. And now I have something that looks like a reflection. And if I change the mode, I can go to screen. That looks pretty good. And I'm just going to bring the opacity down a little bit. And on my layer group, I'm going to add a white full opacity layer mask and just erase the feet there so that where it comes in contact with the water, it's just, looks like I'm kind of ankle deep in the water there. This is looking pretty good, but the colors are not very natural. And even if I was standing right in the water, there'd be a little drop shadow. So to create a drop shadow is the same way that you create this reflection here. In fact, I can just duplicate this, duplicate that, and then I'm going to use my selection tools. Just kind of drag the magic wand across my layer, and I'm going to use my brush, and I'm just going to paint it in with black. Now I need to adjust the opacity back up, and I need to set the mode to normal again. So right now it's just kind of black. And that's okay, because we're going to adjust that as well. So deselect that, and we're going to go to Filters, Blur, and Gaussian Blur. And I'm going to crank that up quite a bit. So 23 works pretty good for me. And I'm going to move it up here. And it looks like I have some to erase there. So I'm going to use my eraser tool and increase the softness or decrease the hardness. Just to get all this colored stuff out of the way. Move it down to the base of my feet. And then bring the opacity down so that the shadow is just kind of very faintly under there. And I would put it underneath my layer. And I'd bring my reflection layer on top of that. So that's how you do a drop shadow and or reflection. If you want to do some more things to your reflection, you can go to Filters and you can do some distortions to make it look like it's rippled. You can see that ripple there. Decrease the opacity just a little bit more. Lastly to this, I'm going to add a color layer on top of everything. And I'm going to use my gradient tool for this. So I'm going to create a new layer. That is not what I want to do. So I went to Layer, New Layer, and I created Color. And on this color layer, I'm going to use my gradient tool. I'm going to select some colors here. You can select any colors that you want, and you can even change the colors, change the shape of the gradient to suit your needs. And I'm going to use this as my color layer. So I'm going to change the mode. And I'm going to use one of my color options here. So HSL color. That looks good. It's a little too blue and greenish for me, so I'm going to turn down the intensity of it by turning the opacity down. And I'll stop when I get to a good point where I like it. The last thing I will do to finish up this image is I'm going to create a little bit of blur. Whatever's in the foreground is going to be very sharp and easy to see, and it's very focused. But the things in the background are going to be a little bit blurrier, and what that's going to do is it's going to create some contrast between the foreground and background elements. So in this case, the only thing in the background here is just the background picture. So I'm going to go to Filters, Blur. I'm just going to do a Gaussian blur. And if I crank it up too much, it's going to look utterly ridiculous. But about 4 looks pretty good. If I turn on the split view and compare it left and right, that looks pretty good. I'm going to click OK. And this is a good picture to turn in. So I'm going to go to File and Export as a JPEG file. And then turn that into Schoology. Well, good luck on finishing up your self-portrait collages inside of GIMP, and I wish you lots of success.